What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, May 12th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I just want to say, as an airplane flies over top of my house, which has been more and more lately, I don't know why. I know I live right down the street from an airport, but there's helicopters, planes. I know there's an army base right down the street from me also, but it just seems more excessive nowadays, and I don't exactly know why, Phil. Maybe you can fill me in since you're the airplane guy.
Okay, first off, I don't know why I'm the airplane guy.
Well, it's not me, so it has to be one of us, so it's you.
So I was going to do what we always do and tie weather into this podcast, as we often do. And, you know, the weather's getting a little nicer, a little less treacherous out there.
Beautiful.
So maybe there's more flights, and even from the air base that's over there, maybe they're a little safer to do practice flights with the better weather that has been around recently.
Yeah, I knew where I lived and where I was moving, and I knew there was an airport, but I moved into an airport because there's like 3 flights a day, 3 flights every other day out of it. Niagara Falls is not a very big airport, so I was like, it's not a big deal. I overthought, and I guess, is that the right saying?
Underthought?
Underthought is probably the better way to phrase it. That's why you're here. Underthought about the Army base that's right there and how active that base is. So, and those planes are bigger and louder and scarier, and they fly lower. And that was an oversight by me.
But, you know, you've learned for your next test.
Yeah, I'm going to move out to the country where nobody's around me and I don't have to worry about neighbors. So if you want to stick along with my journey to try to live off the land, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts and check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil, I'm coming in hot. And I guess this isn't a really hot take. It's more of a cool take, if you see what I'm doing here. Power washing. I'm going to be power washing my house today because the spring has sprung. The birds have begun pooping everywhere. And for some reason, when they're flying parallel to the ground, they can hit something that's perpendicular to the ground every time. Don't know how. Doesn't make sense. I got a bird feeder, so maybe that'll attract them to the bird feeder instead of just pooping on the side of my house. But I got to clean it up. So it got me thinking. I actually enjoy power washing. It's kind of satisfying to see like grossness and then you just like power wash it. I don't know why. I'm a freak like that. It's satisfying to me to watch videos and stuff like that. It's just fun. But it's similar to like snow blowing where it's oddly satisfying, where you're like taking this plot of driveway and clearing it, making it look beautiful. It's the same thing with power wash. I don't know why. I just enjoy it. The only thing I dislike is if it's like a 60 with a breeze. It's going to get a little cold, but when it's like 70 to 80, no breeze, sun's baking you, having that mist fly off the house, it feels good.
All right, I have 2 comments for you.
I'm ready.
1, have you seen the TikToks? There's one specifically, I don't even follow it, but it pops up for me all the time, where he goes through, and I think he does it for free sometimes, and he like clears people's driveways with a power washer.
Yep.
And he also like cuts out inches of grass and sidewalk, and like sidewalks that are completely covered with grass. He'll go through with the power washer and like clear it all off. That is very satisfying to watch. Like you said, it's pretty nice looking. And I get to do that at work sometimes. I had to power wash. I think I actually have to do it tomorrow morning as well, but at work. So that's it's pretty fun, power washing. And second question I have is I would like you to rank your outdoor chores you don't mind or actually enjoy doing. You got snow blowing, you got lawn mowing, you got gardening, you got power washing. You seem to like all of these things if the weather's nice and correct. So I feel like you've mentioned all of them at some point on this show at this point. So I need a ranking of these by this point.
Okay, hang on. You said power washing?
Yep. And then you got snow blowing.
Snow blowing.
Lawn mowing.
Mowing.
I believe you had gardening in there as well, or like picking out weeds, or
I did just throw down mulch yesterday. So
sure,
that works.
We'll throw that in there.
Can I also put weed whacking?
Yes, you can.
Weed whacking / edging.
What about the leaf blower?
Oh, I do use the leaf blower. That one's
clearing the driveway. It's a lighter version of a power washer.
Okay, so we got power washing, snow blower, mowing, gardening, weed whacking / edging, and then we got leaf blowing. I learned early on that I am not a good gardener whatsoever. Brooke's sister is a great gardener. She has her own greenhouse that when she goes out of town, we take care of it. And I walk in it and I'm jealous of the capabilities that she has. So I'm putting that one last just because of my level of talent at it. It's not good. I've been trying to grow grass in the same spot where the dogs run all the time for like 3 years. Can't do it. I've given up. It's just a plot of dirt now. So that one's number 6. I'll do leaf blowing next if I have to use the hand one. If I have to use the hand one, it vibrates your hand too much. I love the backpack ones. When I was working for the parks department, you got that ones all the time to clear out like the pavilions and stuff like that. That's fun because it's just on your backpack. You feel like you're a Ghostbuster. That one's fun. So I'll put that one 5 though if you have to use the hand one. I'll put, let's do weed whacking / edging 4. Just because I like edging more than weed whacking, but I have this creek behind my house that currently still has water in it, so I have to weed whack that. That's not fun when you get too close to the water and it shoots you at your face, so I'll put that one 4th. I will put... Currently, I just have a push mower, so that one will skyrocket up to the top when I get a riding lawnmower, but right now, push mower is 3rd. I'll do power washing 2nd because when like you said specifically, the weather is perfect for this. So I'll put that one 2nd. Snow blowing still 1st. As long as you get perfect conditions, I could snow blow all day. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing in my life that I enjoy.
All right, then final bonus question. Out of those devices you just mentioned, what are battery operated?
Weed whacker.
All right, I was just wondering.
That's it.
I was just curious.
I know you are the battery operated lawnmower, right?
I got the leaf blower for my birthday. That's new this year. So I got a battery operated leaf blower, and now I have the lawnmower and the weed whacker. So I'm pretty much cordless.
They're all the same brand though, right?
Bad. The weed whacker and leaf blower are Ryobi, and then the lawnmower is Ego.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, usually you want all the stuff so you can just have the same battery. I think I've got like 5 or 6 Ryobi batteries just from the tools and stuff I bought.
But the lawnmower battery is a honking separate battery anyway, so I don't think they would.
That's fair. We have been called the Ryobi podcast out there, so
and I'll take it because I love a neon green.
It is.
Their color scheme is popping.
We're no DeWalt or Milwaukee, but
no.
Ryobi, when you're first starting out, that's a quality tool there. I mean, when you've never had any tools before, yeah, it gets the job done. I've done a whole home updating just using the tools that I've collected over time, and the house looks pretty good. I mean, it was all like this when I moved in. Nothing's changed. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Home inspector, you don't know what I'm talking about. We're going to beep this out. Okay, Phil, it is time for the round 2 of the playoffs to kick off. As we're recording right now, we still got an hour and a half until the Western Conference Finals kick off on a rare Thursday. But the one that we're actually focused on right now is the Bandits versus the Rock. Game 1 is tonight at 7:30. Game 2 is Saturday in Hamilton at 7 o'clock. A rare home-and-home back-to-back semifinals, which I think they're condensing this more to help the players that also play in the PLL and the other box leagues that start up in June, I think it is. I think PLL for sure is the first week in June, and last year it went to the end of June that the NLL finals did. So I think they're kind of slowly working together as the two leagues combine, but who knows? Who knows why they're doing this? I don't really care. It's more lacrosse packed in, and this is another reason why you wanted the number 1 seed, so you have to do less travel. Toronto has to come here and then fly back the next day or drive back. I don't know what they do, but that's one advantage of being the top seed is one less day of travel. But this is the 9th and 10th game that they will be playing against each other in the last 2 seasons, Phil. Buffalo is 5-3. This year, they've gone 2-1, 3 games, 11-8 victory in Buffalo, or in Hamilton. Buffalo won it December 17th, 18-7 beatdown. Toronto won April 1st. Yeah, too bad it wasn't April Fool's. But then Buffalo came back 11-10 just 2 or 3 weeks ago in Buffalo. But Phil, 9th and 10th time, I don't think this happens very often that you see the same opponent so often, but I guess that does happen when you face each other 3 times in the regular season.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely some debates around the league, and I'm sure there's some pretty decent arguments, but I don't know any two teams personally. I know we're part of Buffalo, but I just don't know anyone else that matches this rivalry in the NLL right now. And like you said, you're seeing the same team 9 and 10 times in the last 2 years, and Toronto has had to go through Buffalo 3 straight championship series in order to get to the championship, obviously a division series, but either way, I just don't know if there's any bigger rivalry right now in the NLL than there is between Buffalo and Toronto, and it does not help when you play each other this many times.
Yeah, both teams definitely know each other. They know their tendencies, so you're not going to surprise each other. Any surprises you would have had, you would have pulled out of your butt by now. So we'll go over some player totals in just the games this year. For Buffalo, Nanticoke's got 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points, 17 shots. Kluch, 8 points so far, 4 and 4, 28 shots. McCulley's got 3 assists. He did not play in game 1. Nanticoke didn't play in game 2. Byrne, 7, 7, 14. They're making it very easy for me here. Buchanan, 3, 7, and 10, 14 shots. Smith, while he is not scoring on the 31 shots, he's only got 4 goals. He's got 14 assists for 18 points. And then Frazier, 1 game. He didn't play in games 1 and 2. He's questionable in this one, but 3 goals. McKay, 18 loose balls, 2 caused turnovers. But the biggest stats that I'm coming back here with is Weiss and Priolo. While they're gathering the loose balls, 14 and 24 respectively, neither of them have any caused turnovers in the 3 games they've played. I think that is the number that really stands out besides the Smith with 31 shots and only 4 goals.
Especially with Priolo. He's one of the team leaders in that category. Right. So to see that is very shocking. I mean, every single game he seems to be up there as one of, if not the number 1 guy on the team with caused turnovers. He's one of the better defensemen, true defensemen on the team. And to see him have 0 in 3 games is very interesting. I mean, the 24 loose balls is obviously great, but 0 caused turnovers. I mean, I think it's a credit to Toronto's offense and the way they move the ball around. They do an extremely good job. That's kind of what happened in the 18-7 game. They were just whipping it around like it was absolutely nothing, and their passes were incredible. And I think the amount of caused turnovers between McKay, Weiss, and Priolo, I mean, 2 total, all coming from McKay in 3 games. I think that just kind of shows how impressive their passing is and how careful they are when they make those passes. So I think if they can find a way to drive those caused turnovers up, obviously that's a pretty easy way to kind of flip the script a little bit, but even getting each of those players getting 1 a game would really, I think, throw a little bit of a wrench in the Toronto offense. So I think that's going to be a big focal point, like you mentioned.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers from the Halifax Rock game that happened last Friday, because, the biggest indication is what your team looks like most recently, and they were playing without Tom Schreiber. Tom Schreiber last game versus Halifax, he's questionable in these 2 games. They had Halifax caused 21 turnovers last time in the Friday game versus Toronto. So maybe taking Schreiber out of the offense, which we knew was going to be a big blow. They still put up 15 goals, 2 empty netters, so really only 13, but still, to cause 21 caused turnovers for a Halifax defense that isn't known to be that elite says something about when you take the main piece out of an offense away, they struggle a bit, and it takes them a bit to adjust to what it looks like. I mean, Schreiber played all 18 games this year. The offense runs through him. He's the league leader in shots. It's just when you take that main piece away, the rest of the pieces have to adjust. Somebody else has got to step up, and you can kind of see them trying to work through it with 21 caused turnovers. If we get that, Phil, 21 caused turnovers in Friday night, and somehow they walk out and lose, I'm probably going to be pulling out the little hair that I have left because I'm not going to be able to understand how that happened. Because you and I have been preaching loose balls are great to have, great secondary chances on offense with this offense that the Buffalo Bandits just showed last week with 20 goals. But if you can, we always say that the caused turnovers mean more because it's like an instant thing. You can lead down. I mean, you saw the Steve Priolo and Ian McKay breakaway. They happened because of caused turnovers. We think that's a bigger indication of, more success moving forward. And we'll look more into that in the offseason to prove that we're actually right. But I really think if they have 21 caused turnovers, which I highly doubt will happen because Buffalo's never known to have caused turnovers, they're better this year than previous years, but still, if they walk out and they don't win, I'm going to lose it, Phil. I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're even just Halifax in that situation, just seeing how they lost and how much they lost by the end and all those goals that got called back, like, And same thing, like exactly what you just said, having 21 caused turnovers and not being able to pull off a win, plus a lot of goals called back, plus just not even really that close of a game. I mean, it was close, but wasn't incredibly close. I mean, same situation. If the Bandits had similar stat lines and ended up losing, exact same thing, I'd be like, what the heck just happened out there? But hopefully that's not what happens, but I will take the 21 caused turnovers and a victory.
So we'll go over some Toronto numbers in the 3 games they played so far. Zach Manzi's been scoreless, but he's got 7 assists, 14 shots, so you've held him off the board. He's shooting 0%. Dan Dawson's hasn't played in game 2 and 3. He played in game 1, only had 4 shots, but Corey Small is the offensive addition to this team, and I think one of the biggest offensive additions to any team in the offseason that happened. He's got 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points, 39 shots, 18 loose balls in 3 games versus Buffalo. He's just been their kryptonite. And I've been saying it, but just looking at those numbers, if you can find a way to limit Corey Small's efficiency versus the Buffalo Bandits, play him like you did Jeff Teat. Match somebody up on him. Don't let anybody touch the ball. This might be a good Dalton Solver game. I don't know how you're going to be able to get him in the lineup unless a guy like Chase Frazier doesn't play, who is questionable. If you can just do exactly what you did with Jeff Teat, have Solver follow him the whole time. He's quick enough to keep with him. Small, slower than Jeff Teat. If you can limit his opportunities, I think you're giving yourself a great chance to win this one. I mean, Rogers 5-8-13, Craig 5-8-13, same numbers. Schreiber's 10 goals, 8 assists, 18 points. Like I said, questionable 36 shots. And then Keogh, you've kept him in check 1-4-5. But the biggest one that I'm terrified with, and I said it in the final game that they had in Banditland, Corey Small terrifies me, Phil. Corey Small absolutely terrifies me.
And I have to imagine after seeing each other 3 times just this season alone that both teams are looking at it the exact opposite way. But, I mean, obviously the Bandits are looking at Small's numbers and trying to figure a way to stop him. And Toronto's looking at Small's numbers and finding a way to target him because, like you said, he has been the kryptonite. 22 points, team lead against the Bandits so far this season. So even the 39 shots, I mean, the fact that Small is out shooting Schreiber this year in the games that they've seen each other is pretty mind-blowing, knowing how many times Schreiber shoots the ball. So clearly they are force-feeding Small against the Bandits, and clearly it's working pretty well for them so far. So I could see them, again, exactly like you mentioning, targeting Small on that left side as one of their better forwards against the Bandits, and I'm sure the Bandits know that exactly as well. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see how the Bandits can finally kind of land that counterpunch to Small. I mean, last game against Halifax that you just mentioned, Small ended up leading the team in shots with 12, and Zach Mans ended up leading the team in goals and points with 3 and 3. So Mans stepped up in Schreiber's absence in general, but Small still had a team lead 12 shots. So to me, even though Mans stepped up, I think the big one to watch is still Small because, like you said, he's been the best one so far all season against the Bandits, and even in this last game, he led the team again with 12 shots. So he's going to be shooting. He's going to be shooting a lot, and it's up to the Bandits to find a way to shut him down.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I think is also terrifying is how good Toronto Rock is in the transition game. You saw it in the Halifax game where Harris had a big game. DeSnoo's had a huge season so far. I know he's only played in 11 games, but he's been great. 16 loose balls in the 2 games he played, 2 caused turnovers. TD Erlin, 38 loose balls. A lot of those are on the faceoffs, but he's got 2 caused turnovers. Brad Cree, 4 caused turnovers. Harris, 3 caused turnovers. He's also got 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. It's just, they are loaded, and I have been known to be at least on this show, and I think it's spreading across Banditland, that I like the Toronto Rock. I don't like the Toronto Rock. I just appreciate how good they are. I can be what's the right word? Objective. I can be objective. I don't have to be a full-time homer. I can understand and realize how good the Toronto Rock are. I've been saying it. I call them to make it to the finals, and I said versus San Diego, and they're out. So what do I know? But I am very scared about their transition game as well. And yes, Buffalo just put up 20 goals. Against Rochester, they allowed 8. They've gone 2-1 against Toronto. They've showed that this team, that the Buffalo Bandits, can score on the Toronto Rock. 11-10 game, 11-8 game. They can shut down the Toronto Rock's offense when they need to, minus the 18-goal game that they also had. But if the biggest things for me is stopping the transition game, which the Buffalo Bandits have been very good at all season long, and shutting down Corey Small. If you can do those two things, I think you're walking out of game one with the win, and then game two, it's going to Hamilton. It's anybody's dogfight there.
Yeah, I think it's hard to throw away the 18-7 loss because you can't just throw it out. But at the same time, in a what seemed much more like a playoff atmosphere for that third game. I mean, winner takes East Division. That is massive throughout playoffs. It was massive in the season. Obviously, Toronto absolutely wanted to win the East Division finally and take it away from Buffalo. And in that game, the one that meant arguably the most of the entire season, Buffalo was able to step up and win 11-10. And I mean, with that being the most recent game against these two teams and that being arguably the most meaningful game with these two teams, I think that's the one that you can kind of take away the most from. And that being said, just knowing that Buffalo found a way to win that game. I think it was in this last post-game interview after the Rochester game, Dane Smith was kind of mentioning that going into these playoffs, he thinks that Toronto is the team to beat and that a lot of people have Toronto as the team coming out of the East, and he really likes that, finally being the underdog, being the team that, they have to step up, they have to find a way to win, and Toronto's kind of the team to go through, even though Buffalo has home field advantage. I think even for the team, knowing that they've already faced Toronto at its absolute best, arguably, when they were healthy, they had everybody back in that game, and you were able to come away with that 11-10 win. I think that just means a lot to this team, knowing that they can do it. And like you said, I think the two keys are shutting their transition down, shutting Small down, and then finding a way to get to Nick Rose, because he is not easily beaten, but the Bandits showed, like you said, twice now they were able to put up at least 11 and show that they can get to him. And with this team that just put up 20 goals in this last game and everybody pretty much just rolling, it'll be, I think, a different kind of offense than Toronto's even seen so far. And to that point, and kind of your mentioning of Solver earlier, I wonder if with the back-to-back game and Fraser questionable, I wonder if it's almost one where you sit him one game just to not only get him healthy and not kind of push him, but also give Toronto two separate looks, where one game you have Solver in as a little bit more of a defensive player who can also be transition, and the other game, if Fraser's out in the first one, you bring Fraser back in the second one and give Toronto's defense another look, another player they have to keep an eye on and kind of game plan for. So it'll be interesting to see what that active roster looks like on Friday.
I think that's a great point you brought up, that even with the back-to-back games where you like you said, they've played each other. This is their 9th time in the last 2 seasons. It's the 4th time this year they face each other. The tendencies are there. You can kind of use this back-to-back a little bit with mind games of, okay, my lineup looks like this tonight. You have no idea what it's going to be looking like on Saturday. And I know they're focused on Friday first, get the win, move on, focus on game 1 in Bandit Land. You got the home game. You got to win this one so you can put the pressure on the Rock that, hey, we have to go home. We have to win this. Whoever wins the first game, it usually wins the series. It's tough to win 2 games in a row in this type of environment, and that's why game 1 is so important. But I love the point where you're talking about, hey, maybe one night you'll go this lineup, the next night switch it up so they're not expecting it. So that's one way that you can play the type of game. But before we get into the quarter summaries that everybody loves and hurts my brain because it doesn't make any sense based on the whole season as a grand total, but we'll just talk the Friday game first. What do you think score-wise they need to put up? Like, if I told you they put up this total amount of goals, you would be confident they walk out the door with a victory. What is that total Buffalo has to score on offense? And it'll make sense when we go into the quarter summary what their grand total so far is. But what's that total that you think they need to put up to be able to walk out of Bandit Land into Hamilton with a 1-game advantage?
Like, lowest offensive score they can win with? Is that where we're kind of getting at?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything past that's but bonus.
Realistically, I'd probably just say 11. I think their defense, and with what we just saw to Matt Vince in this game against Rochester, again, I know Rochester's defense and that whole team is a little bit different from what Toronto's going to be able to bring, but with the way Matt Vince played in that first quarter and played that entire game, I mean, they scored 7 goals on him the whole game, and 3 of those were on the power play. So take those out, you literally scored 4 even strength goals against a guy, and 3 were all right in a row. And as soon as they figured that out and got rid of the Katoni goals from out far and stopped that and shut it down, he was pretty much lights out the entire game, and he made a lot of really good saves. So I think with the way this team is playing and the way the defense and Matt Vince are playing, I think you can get away with kind of a pretty similar score to what they won last time and have it be about 11-10, 11-9. I think if they get to 11, they have a chance to win.
I'll put it at 11. I think they can win. I think if they get to 13,
13 was my
very,
original
very
number.
Good. Yeah.
I feel like I would feel comfortable and safe saying 13, but you said minimum. I think minimum they can win
11,
with 11. I think 10 would be scary and pushing it. But I think if you get to 11, I think that would be like the minimum I would want to see them have to win. But 13 was my original thought as like a kind of comfortable number that if they can get to 13, I'd be fairly confident that they won that game.
How about a 7-6 overtime win?
We don't have to be San Diego all over again. Also, that
I'll
would
take the
be
win, though.
terrifying. The entire no overtime. I mean, it's going to be probably pretty similar to last Eastern Finals where we have to wait for an official review as it comes down to half a millisecond if they scored or not. But at least we got our one massive home victory. We didn't have to sweat out all the home games this year.
Yeah, when we were walking out of the arena, and I leaned over to Brooke and went, "It's the first time in a while I've been able to breathe. I am in big trouble next week." When facing Toronto, it's not going to be good. So we'll go over the quarter summaries. Some of these numbers just don't make any sense, Phil. First quarter, remember, they've played 3 games, so this is the 3-game total. Buffalo has put up 4 goals in the first quarter. In those 3 games, 4. Toronto, 12. That's a huge difference there. It just shows that I know Toronto has that 7-goal spot in that game 2. Even if you take that out, it's still 5-4. They're still outscoring them. They got to get out to a better start or at least contain Toronto and keep it within 1 goal. Buffalo's not been the best team coming out of the stretch in the first quarter with the lead. Second quarter, they bounce back. Buffalo's 11, Toronto 7. So the first half so far, Buffalo has 15 goals, Toronto has 19. Third quarter usually is Buffalo's dominant quarter. They got the numbers back closer. Remember, after right before game 3, we talked about these numbers. Buffalo 8, Toronto 9. Fourth quarter, though, Buffalo 6, Toronto 8. So the second half goes to Toronto once again, 14-17 for a grand total. Buffalo has scored 29 goals versus Toronto. Toronto has scored 36. So if you do the breakdown in those 3 games, Buffalo is averaging 9.67 goals for, and Toronto is averaging 12 goals for. So that was a big reason why I said, what number would you feel comfortable with? You threw out 11. Based on these numbers, Phil, they would walk out of game 1 with an L.
That is depressing. Again, that 18, you can't throw it out because it
Excuse
happened.
it.
So you can't just throw it away. It's like that, kind of like the curve where you throw out the highest and the lowest,
Right.
and then you get your average. That's how you get averages for the most part. But you can't just ignore the fact that Toronto was able to put up 18 goals because they're not going to ignore that fact either. And I know Vince wasn't in it the whole time. I know the team obviously played awful, and we understand that game, in theory, it should be in a way thrown out, but it simply can't be. It's, a part of the season. It's part of what happened. So you can't just throw it away. Obviously it skews literally everything. So it's interesting, but I think the 11-10 game we just had, and even the 11-8 game, I mean, that one you can, in theory, throw away as well because Toronto didn't have half its players. It was super early on in the season, and Toronto was absolutely not at full strength or just playing well at all early in the year. So if you want to throw the first 2 out, then you're back to your 11-10, and I just think that's a little bit more indicative of where these two teams actually are right now, is that just extremely close. They're both the best in the East. We kind of knew that coming into the season, and here we are again. They are both coming out as the best in the East again, and I think these two teams are just extremely evenly matched, hate each other a ton, and I think we're going to get another very close 11-10, 12-10, 11-9 style game.
So we'll just go over a few more stats here. Buffalo, 160 shots in those 3 games. Toronto's 166. So very, very even. Face-offs, Buffalo has kind of creeped back up into it. I know in the first game, I think it was like 24-4 or something like that in favor of Toronto. So those numbers are skewed, but Toronto is out face-off winning them 48-29, but Adler's been on a roll right now. And then power play, Buffalo's 5 for 14, Toronto's 6 for 17. So while there are a lot of penalties taken, I think this game, I think you're gonna see the first 2 quarters, it's gonna get ugly. I think there's gonna be a lot of chippiness. I think there's gonna be a lot of extracurricular activities after the whistle. But I think in the second half, you're going to see both teams buckle down. You're going to see them both get into their groove. You're going to see both teams kind of settle in and ease into the game. I think starting a 3-game series, best 2 out of 3, or best of 3 in this series, I think to start, you're going to see it very, very ugly. I think when we watch the Colorado-Calgary game after this recording, I think you're going to see that game very ugly, and then it's going to start grooving into it. I think you're going to see both teams that just hate each other. Toronto wouldn't leave the field after that 11-10 victory in Buffalo. They wouldn't leave. It's going to be very, very ugly to start, but I think they're both going to calm down in the second half, and then you're going to see some of the best lacrosse, best defense, best offense you're going to see in NLL all year.
All right, so I have 2 questions. One you kind of answered, but I'm going to try to argue it a little bit. And they kind of go hand in hand, though. So my first one is, I will ignore what you just said, and we'll move on real quick, and then we'll circle back to it. So first one, for the refs in this game, you know that these two teams are out for blood. You saw what happened between Toronto and Halifax and how, I don't want to say out of hand because it's just good playoff lacrosse. It is what it is. But you saw how that one got very physical, a lot of fights in that game. You saw exactly how the end of the Toronto game, not only the 18-7 blowout where, again, it ended in just tons of fights. You saw how this last one ended in, very chippiness, like you just said. Toronto wouldn't leave the field. You're the refs. Are you letting them play playoff lacrosse and letting a lot go and just understand it's going to be ugly, physical, and good luck? Or are you trying to put your foot down, call everything early, control it, do a lot of, equal penalties, like, roughing on both these guys, still 5-on-5, but you're both in the box, and just keep it as tame as you can? Or do you think the refs are just going to let it fly and just watch it get real bad?
I'm setting a line, and I'm sticking with the line. Like we've said for 2 years now, we don't care how they ref it. If they want to ref it really strict for both teams the whole game. If you want to ref it very easily, do it the whole game. You can't pick and choose, this looks like slashing, I'm going to call it here even though I didn't call in the first quarter. As long as they're consistent, I'm good with it, but I think that you got, knowing what you know going into this game, that it's going to be very chippy, it's going to be very fighting. I almost think you got to let them get it out of their system in the first half. Like, call anything dirty, call anything really, like, after the whistle excessive, but it's like, I don't really like using this as a narrative, but it's kind of like you got to let the dog off the leash, let it get it out of its system, and then you see how calm he gets. Like, for our dogs, when I get home from work, they got a ton of energy. I let them in the backyard. They run around like crazy, burn it out. Then they're done the rest of the day. They're perfectly fine. I think that's almost what you have to do, but make it so, like, I would go over the ref. If I was the ref, I would go over to, okay, guys, I know you're going to get it out of your system. Here's the line. Don't cross the line. We're going to let you get it out of your system. Get it out. Done. Over with. Then, just stick to the line. Don't let them cross the line. If they cross the line, go to the box. But just remain consistent. That's the biggest thing for me, is consistency. If you're calling it for one team, call it for both teams. If you're not going to call it in the beginning, don't call it at the end. Just remain consistent throughout the whole game, and then the players know what they can get away with and what they can't. I think that's the biggest thing that the refs struggle with in this league, is inconsistencies, and that's when they get in trouble. I thought they were very good for the most part this year. Some gaps in their system, they're humans, it's going to happen, but just remain consistent the whole game, and I think it'll work itself out throughout the rest of the series.
All right, so the part 2 that you've kind of already answered twice, but I'm going to try to fight you on it a little bit. So we saw these two teams obviously play in the last finals that we had, and we saw that in the first game, it was 18-17, 19-18?
Yeah, Weiss was the first one. Yeah, it was 18-17.
Okay, 18-17 in the first game. We saw them obviously look ridiculous compared to Nick Rose and Matt Vince and what we expected going into that game. Very low scoring, what we kind of got in the second game, but that first game was ridiculously loose, all over the place. And again, 18-17, it was just an astronomical score for those two teams. So do you think in the first game, knowing especially that it's a true back-to-back situation where they have to go out and play the next night, do you think the first game between these two teams, I know you've kind of already said are against it, but do you think that they might play a little bit less physical and less aggressive and try to let their offenses play a little looser, play a little bit more open, see the transition game go up a little bit, and play the defense a little bit softer because you know that you're going to have to play the very next day. So if you're beating up on each other a ton, you have to play back-to-back, and any injury that you get in this game is obviously going to follow you into the next night, whether it be small or big. So do you really go out there Friday night and play extremely physical and then have very limited or just whatever you have left you have on Saturday, but not a ton because you just played a grueling battle? Or do you kind of play it a little bit more fast and loose on Friday, similar to what we saw last year with 18-17, and then try to lock it down and play a little bit more aggressive and physical in a lower scoring second night when everybody's a little bit more exhausted?
That's tough because I know what you're saying. Last year was the 18-17, but there was that week in between, knowing that there's back-to-back. And I know in the finals, Buffalo won game 1 and then they lost games 2 and 3. I understand that. But usually what's the case is if you win game 1, you're setting that tone. So I think Buffalo has to win game 1. They have to. They can't go into Hamilton Saturday night with all the pressure. Toronto wins, they move on to the finals, your season's done. I mean, game 1 to me is a must win. You have to win game 1 if you're going to have a chance to win this series. I don't think you're going to be able to beat Toronto in Hamilton and then back in Banditland in game 3. If you can do it, more power to you. I just think game 1 is going to be such a must win, and I think the players know that, where you have to go out looking to battle them nonstop. You have to play face up. I think that's how you have to face Toronto anyways, is play as physical as you can. You can't let their offense get going, because when they do, you can see what happens. They can pour it on. So for me, it's you play like there is no tomorrow, because if you lose game 1, you might be done tomorrow.
All right, so I like the aspect you took, because I also agree that Friday is a must-win situation. I do think the Bandits need to win game 1. I think if they lose it, they still have a chance to come back. I'm not saying it's impossible, and if they lose Friday, it's over, but I agree that Friday is massively important. They would absolutely love to win it, and you kind of need to win it. So if you go in with that mentality and you go in thinking that, this is a kind of, like you said, must-win situation, you have to win Friday, and you're playing all out to win that game no matter what, then I could see it being a little bit more physical and just kind of giving it absolutely everything you have on Friday to make sure you win that game. And then obviously you care and you want to win Saturday, but it's a slightly less important game if you know that you can, come back on that third game, come back to Bandit Land, and then it's all, all bets are off. But I think I agree that you're going to want to go as hard as possible on Friday, knowing that you kind of really want to win that game and go into Hamilton with a 1-game lead. And then if you steal it in Hamilton, you steal it in Hamilton, but you don't want to go in there, like you said, down 1 with all the pressure. You want to make sure that Toronto's the one with all the pressure going to Hamilton. So I will agree with that.
Woo. I thought you were going to try to fight me. You didn't. I guess I agreed with you. But we don't really have to go over the players too much. The lefties, you already know them. This 4th time you're facing them, 4th and 5th time on Saturday. Dan Craig, Zach Mans, and Corey Smalls on the left side. Righties, Stephen Keogh, Jalen Rogers, and Tom Schreiber. Schreiber, once again, questionable. He did not play last week. He's on the IR, so they got to make a move. You'll probably find out around noon when we put out the numbers. I mean, last week, Phil, after the recording, this came out on Friday, the injury report comes out, I think it was around noon, and Schreiber was on it questionable. Not more than 5 minutes later, they ruled out Tom Schreiber. Why even put out the injury report when you are, or list him as questionable when he goes right on the out? It didn't make any sense. As soon as it why wouldn't you wait closer to game time? I don't understand that one. You could have just messed with Halifax. Not that it mattered, because they ended up with a victory, but it's like that gamesmanship playing a bit. But yeah, those are the forwards, defense and transition. You know how good they are. TD Erlin's your faceoff guy, 62% of the regular season. Brad Cree, 35 caused turnovers, 13 loose balls. Latrell Harris, 24 caused turnovers. Mitch DeSnew only played in 11 games, but 17 caused turnovers. Josh Jubinville, 22 caused turnovers, so this team just gets after it. And then Nick Rose in net, 13 and 5. Sub 10, almost a sub 9 goals against at 903, and then 80 save percentage. This team is loaded top down. You already know that. They're greatly coached. It's just unbelievable. It's going to be a battle all weekend, and this is the matchup that everybody wanted. I know I would have loved if Halifax upset him because the road there is so much easier. But I think deep down as an NLL fan, this is the matchup everybody wanted to see. This is the matchup that is going to be on everybody's radar on Friday night and Saturday night. It's must-see lacrosse action, and I hope everybody tunes in for it because it's going to be a loaded 26 hours, I would call it. It's just going to be such a fun weekend.
Yeah, I can't believe we are closing in on the first game already. I mean, it's kind of fun that it's Friday that they play this next game because you get that one fewer day, and by the time the last game was over and you party and you have a great time, you wake up, it's Sunday. You're already looking at pretty much 5 days left until that first game comes back. So very short week when you really look at it that way. I mean, it's probably a little bit of a bummer for the players who have to turn around and play that quick and not only play one, but play two. That is a little bit daunting. And that's another thing we haven't really touched on, which, again, I don't really know how much it actually affects them, but Toronto did get to play on Friday versus Saturday. So the Bandits have 1 day less of recovery time going into this game, and then you're going into a back-to-back. I know they talk about it a ton all the time in football about these, short weeks. So in theory, the Bandits do have a slightly shorter week than Toronto, but I think they'll be perfectly fine. And I think going into a back-to-back is going to be a very interesting thing because it's the first time we've really seen this in playoffs is a back-to-back game out of the three. It's the first time we've really seen a back-to-back series in a weekend. So it's new territory, not just for us, but for the players, for the entire league on, East and West. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this all kind of plays out in the first ever back-to-back playoff series. And hopefully we get a very exciting Sunday, we're already done and through to the championship kind of podcast.
Yeah, I got 2 points for this one. One, what's nice is, yes, Toronto played on that Friday, but they had to go through a juggernaut of Halifax. I mean, I know the score ended up being 15-11, but it was closer than that. I mean, at least in the first half, it was a tough battle to get through that one. Buffalo, yes, they played Saturday, but it was 20-8.
That's true. Vince actually,
I know they still had to fight through it.
Game.
Right. I know it's still playoff action. You still had to fight through it. You still had to battle Rochester, who was no cakewalk whatsoever this entire year. I mean, they beat them in week 6, 15-12. So it wasn't a cakewalk, but at least you got through that. And the second half, you were able to more coast through it. Second thing, they have had a back-to-back so far this year, and both of them were on the road. That Friday night, they faced Philly, 13-9 win. Yes, bad things happened in that game. Josh Byrne went down. Knock on wood, nothing happens again. But then New York, 16-10. And I know those opponents are weaker than Toronto. Neither of them made the playoffs, but at least they have shown that they can do it. Winning back-to-back nights, both days travel, at least the first day here. You don't have to travel. You're already in Buffalo. And it's a much shorter trip to get to Hamilton than it's, 45 minutes over the border? So not bad whatsoever. But I think that's a good point, is seeing how these... Because you have to get up so much for a playoff game. Like, the emotions are up. It's just... I've never played in it. I mean, the highest level I ever played was, AA basketball in high school, and I didn't really play that much. I was the bench warmer for most of the time, but that's the closest action I can come to it. But I gotta imagine that the emotions and how to get up for a playoff game, it will be interesting to see how these players are able to not just manage their bodies, but their emotions and their mentality to, okay, we got up for this game. There's no rest whatsoever. Like you said, this is the first time in NL history, right, that they've ever had back-to-back days in a playoff series, and it'll be interesting to see if they continue with this into next year, or if they fine-tune it, because when this playoff series came out, I was like, wow, double games, even in the finals, back-to-back, it's something that hasn't happened before, and I think these teams are the test dummies for it.
They are the AAA of their own league.
They are. That's what we usually call NLL, especially with some of their numbers and the things they do. But Phil, I won't get into that. I'm in a good mood. Back-to-back podcast. I've been PK good mood style. Let's keep this up. But Phil, we got 2 games. Let's go over game 1, round 2 in Banditland. What is your prediction for this game after going over all the numbers? 4th time they faced them. Can we get close to our predictions once again?
I'm going a little bit higher because I think this one's going to get physical, but I also think with the Bandits 20 spot they just put up, and even Toronto just putting up a good 15, even without Schreiber, even if they have him, whatever happens to their roster, and even Fraser, whatever happens to the Bandits roster. I'm going a little bit higher. I think it's going to be very physical, but I think it's going to be a little bit more offensive. So I'm going 13-11 with the W.
Phil, I don't know if this is a good sign or a horrible sign, but for the first time in BSC history, whether it be NFL or NLL, we have predicted the exact same score. I have them winning 13-11 as well.
Wow. Given the amount of games we've predicted, and I feel like we're all, like you said, we're usually like one goal off close. One way or the other, but we've done this a lot over the years now. I mean, we're up to 40 to 60 games that we've done this for, and we've never hit. So hopefully it is some star power, and it gives them some extra luck to head into tonight's battle and win it 13-11.
So let's see if we can do it again. Round 2, game 2. This time in Hamilton. Buffalo's going in as the road team. According to our predictions, they're up 1-0. Are they winning it on the road, or are they losing it and coming back to game 3 in Banditland next weekend, which will be absolute mayhem?
Oof. All right, so this one is very tough. This one's really like head over heart kind of thing. Like, do I truly believe if they're up 1-0, Buffalo can go in there and take care of business, which, I mean, they did already once before. So they have the track record showing they have done it, and I think it's going to be just as close in the second game as it was all of last year with the last second goals. But I'm going back to the in-season score, and I'm going to go with a pretty close and exhausted team, but I'm going to go with an 11-10. I might even go OT victory.
We didn't do it.
Ah.
I have them losing 14-12.
I knew you would. Ooh, you went high scoring again. I feel like they're going to be exhausted in game 2. I feel like it's going to be a much more of a grind and just kind of a slower, physical, everyone's tired from last night kind of game. I know it's playoffs. I know they're going to get up. I know it's going to be high energy and everything's still going to be crazy. And I could be completely wrong, but I feel like, even look at the San Diego series. Buffalo had to go all the way out to San Diego. San Diego was on that back-to-back, and you ended up with a 7-6 overtime victory because both teams were, playing a little bit off their normal game. I feel like it's going to be something similar-ish to that, where you just, like you said earlier, you give it all you have on Friday for both teams trying to win that first game. And I think they're just going to be tired and exhausted and still playing a playoff game. So you're going to get up, you're going to get excited, you're going to get pumped. But to me, that second game is going to be lower scoring. But we'll see. It could be the exact opposite.
So you explained it perfectly. It makes sense in my brain. But for me, it's just when that happens, it seems to be a bit more sloppy, and there's more opportunities for players to take advantage. So while they might be more gassed and more tired, I can see it being a bit more, free and loose, and more opportunities in the transition game as well. I think that's the biggest thing in this game, besides stopping Corey Small, is what happens in the transition game. Can Buffalo stop their transition game, and can Buffalo get some of their own transition goals? Because a lot of times this season, it hasn't happened last week. You put up 20 goals, but Buffalo has been known where their offense just comes up dry, where they're not putting up big numbers. And they put up 8 goals against Colorado. They put up 7 goals against San Diego. I know those are both West Coast teams, but it has happened this year. The offense has struggled. They haven't been as healthy all year. They were finally healthy. Now Fraser's questionable. Who knows if he's going to play? But this offense has been known to kind of put up duds. And I think getting those transition goals, like you saw last week, the Priolo breakaway, the Ian McKay breakaway, some of those type of goals will be huge and beneficial if your offense is struggling. If JT can try to come up with ideas where to get the transition game rolling in the second and fourth quarter, where you have that benefit of closer to the other end of the field. If that can happen, I'm feeling really good. But you gotta find some magic somewhere on the offensive end. I just think 14-12 loss, while I would love it if I'm wrong and your way works, I want more lacrosse. I don't want this to end in 3 games. I want Buffalo. I was selfish last year in the finals too, where I was like, I want them to win on the home turf, and it came back and bit me, and I had to watch that whole ceremony, sit in my seat, and not happy about it. But I want to see more lacrosse action. As an outsider, I want this to go 3. I think that'll just be fantastic lacrosse, and I think it'll grow the sport. Selfishly, end it in 2.
Yes, please do. Please end it in 2. I just want to go back to the championship for a third straight year, and hopefully this year not turn into the Buffalo Bills, because we're inching our way closer to that nonsense. But we don't have to talk about that milestone. But we have other ones to talk about.
Oh God, Phil, I didn't even think about that milestone. Oh God, why'd you have to put that in my head? Oh man,
they got a ways to go. We got years still, technically, in a way.
We technically have barely over years. Okay. Everybody's final and favorite segment here at the Milestone Hour, and it might take an hour. Here we go. Josh Byrne is 2 goals away from tying Darius Kilgore for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history with 23. Chase Frazier is 1 goal away from tying Troy Cordelini for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history with 14. He is also 2 goals away from tying Kevin Dotsey for 9th with 15. Chris Coutier is... I should add this. There are 2 games, remember, so some of these numbers might seem high, but remember, there's 2 games, so it's possible. Chris Coutier, 5 goals away from tying Ryan Benesh for 7th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Josh Byrne, 9 assists away from tying Mark Stainhouse for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Chris Coutier, 3 points away from tying Jason Crosby for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He's 4 points away from tying Roger Weiss for 9th place and 6 points away from 8th place tying Rich Kilgore. Nick Weiss is 2 penalty minutes away from tying Chris White for 4th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history with 30. Josh Byrne, 3 shots away from passing Ryan Benesh for 4th place in Buffalo Bandits history in shots to Helka Nanakoke. First time mentioning him in a while, which is shocking because it is his 2nd year, but he's already up in the numbers. It's pretty impressive. 2 shots away from passing Kevin Dotsey for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Dane Smith, 4 loose balls away from passing Kevin Brownell for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He's 7 away from tying Darius Kilgore for 8th place. Nick Weiss, 7 loose balls away from passing Kevin Brownell for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He's 10 away from tying Darius Kilgore for 8th. And then Ian McKay, once again, Kevin Brownell falling further and further down the stats. He is 8 loose balls away from tying Kevin Brownell for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He's 12 away from tying Darius Kilgore for 8th place. Nick Weiss is 1 caused turnover away from passing Kevin Brownell for 2nd place in Buffalo Bandits history. And you're going against this guy, Matt Spanger, 1 caused turnover away from passing the Dr. Schnoo, for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He is also 3 away from tying Andrew Watt for 4th place. Bryce Sweeting is 1 caused turnover away from tying Mitch Disnew for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits history. Ian McKay and Justin Martin are 2 caused turnovers away from passing the Dr. Schnoo for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits history. You could push him all the way down, Phil. Just bury him. Dane Smith, 6th place in NLL playoff history with 71 assists. With 4, he will pass Mark Matthews for 5th. And with 13, he will pass Colin Doyle for 4th place. It's insane that he's only 30 years old and keep moving up the ladder. He is 9th place in NLL history in points with 115. With 3, he will pass Mark Matthews for 8th. 6, passing Curtis Dixon for 7th. 9, he will pass Sean Evans for 6th. And with 10, in 2 games here, he will pass Gary Gatt for 5th place in NLL history. 2 more here. Steve Priolo is tied for 8th in NLL history with 160 loose balls. With 3, he will pass Kyle Rubish for 7th. With 19, he will pass Jeremy Thompson for 6th place. And the last one, can't believe he's already up this high. Max Adler, he has 90 playoff faceoff wins. With 28, he will tie Corey Bomberry for 10th place in NLL history. It's insane that he already is possibly within reach of getting top 10 in that number.
It helps when, again, we talked about it last time.
Play
all these numbers, they help when you win in playoffs and you continue to play in playoffs. So like you said, a lot of numbers, a lot of milestones, a lot of different things, either in Bandits history, NLL history. Dane Smith possibly already in this playoffs. Hopefully, if the Bandits continue to move on, he will be 4th all-time in assists and possibly top 5 all-time in points. Absolutely ridiculous. Gary Gate, I mean, pretty solid player to pass in 5th all-time there with the points. But overall, just again, a lot of milestones because you get to kind of pass some of these players when you play so much playoff lacrosse. It helps quite a bit. But yeah, Adler, again, 90 playoff wins and catching up to Corey Bomberry for 10th all-time in NLL history is really impressive for a guy in his pretty much 2nd season, almost 1.5 seasons. It's impressive.
I think he's at a season and a half by now. But Phil, that's a milestone hour. How'd I do this time?
Pretty good. I think I don't know, maybe had one small flub, but I think that was pretty much it. That's at some point we're just gonna get a scrolling ticker and people are just gonna have to read it themselves. Or we'll get one of those the automated like text to speech will just highlight this section and just let the computer spit it all out and see what comes out.
What's that name of it? Chad GPT or something like that now?
I have no idea what you just said.
No, it's some kind of like AI that like writes scripts or something like that. Chad GPT.
I think I do know
That
what you're talking
guy,
about.
Yeah.
We'll
But
feed
Phil,
it. We'll feed it some milestones.
There you go. Well, I like the scrolling ticker though. That would be more fun. I mean, I gotta copy and paste all these in Twitter, and I've already got it in my notes, so I just literally copy and paste into Twitter. But now that I have to get it out by Friday, and then I have to drive, I have to condense my time. I gotta try to space it all out. Usually, I have until Saturday to do it, so I do like half Friday, half Saturday. Now I have to like, okay, time, press send. Okay, time, press send. Press it. I got to rapidly send them out. So if you're interested in hearing any of these more clearly and no more flubs, you can just follow us on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. and you can get them all there. But Phil, this ends this show. Is there anything else you want to add before we officially shut off the lights and head down to Bandit Land? Good Lord, I flubbed that one.
There it is. You better knock on wood after
There's
that.
the flub. I saved it. I saved it up.
You did. And just nothing other than go Bandits. Let's have a great party in Bandit Land, watch an incredible game, most likely a ridiculously physical bloodbath, and it's going to be it's just going to be insane. Like if I don't know, I mean, you definitely could not have predicted 20-8 in the last game, and if this ever got out of hand, I don't think I have no idea. I don't even know what I would do if this game got out of hand like it did for Rochester, but I just don't see that happening. I expect a ridiculously close battle with a lot of back and forth and very tense the entire game. But go Bandits, and let's have some fun.
Yeah, if it ever got out of that hand, I hope Pagula's self-insured that 300 section, because that's coming down.
I think he'd be like, yeah, as long as it's insured, so then he probably is hoping it comes down so he can use the insurance money to actually build a proper we don't have to go into that again though.
Give me a nice seat for my keister, Phil. I got the keister counter going. There we go. But that pretty much ends this one. On our next show, we will dive into, hopefully, a clean sweep of the Toronto Rock. But if not, I mean, there's 3 results here, Phil. It could either talk about on Monday, it's a 1-1 series. We could talk about Monday, 2-0 victory, or we can just not have a show on Monday if the third result happens. That's fine too. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter, Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.